Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here, Golden Opportunities Coaching. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We got about 330 subscribers right now. I'd love to push that to 400 by the close of August. Can you help me? Could you please send invites to your friends, family, people on social media, and whatever have you? We'd love to help as many people as we can and would love your help to do that. Lasting love, I think we all, or almost all of us, are determined to find a lasting, loving relationship or partner. What if I told you there are ways to do that? We're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about 7 of those. Things I've seen in the last 13 years working with people. I've worked with over 15,000 people in several dozen countries, and these things seem to be in common as it relates to finding a lasting, loving relationship. So the first one is going to seem kind of weird, and I've talked about it in other audios, and certainly feel free to comment if these things apply to you. But silence. If you can sit in silence with a person, then you can solve challenges with a person. When you're comfortable enough to be yourself completely and not feel that you need to perform, then chances are finding a way to solve any challenge or enjoy any moment is also attainable for you. That's super important. So silence is valuable because ultimately when we are able to be silent with a person, we're also able to um, find solutions to challenges. We're able to see the world in a similar way, but still maintain our self identity, which is so often a challenge for people. When you're comfortable just being in the same room with a person and not feeling the need to fill their every need or fill the space with words or actions, then you really do trust that they're there for the right reasons. And when that trust is mutual, the relationship can survive. So another factor in this, the second thing I want to bring up is able to think both corporately and separately. So a lasting relationship requires that both people maintain their self identity while also being able to solve problems together and switch modes relatively quickly. So there's a reality that many people use relationships as a way to overcompensate for feeling underloved within themselves. So that can come from regret, that can come from mental illness, that can come from a false belief that a relationship will complete the person. There's a million things that can come from, but maintaining self identity and independent individual interests is essential to maintain to attaining and maintaining a lasting, healthy, loving relationship. But at the same time, the ability to work together, the ability to problem solve together, the ability to enjoy things together, and be able to switch in a moment into what is relational mode or connection mode is essential to the realities of a lasting, meaningful relationship. And so, in the relationships that I've seen work, and unfortunately, that's usually about 10 to 15% of romantic relationships actually work where both people benefit and feel valued, which is a really sad statistic, but it's just the way it is and what I've witnessed. And it doesn't matter what culture you're from, it doesn't matter what background you're from, it doesn't necessarily matter things like if your parents stayed together or didn't. Although if you have a relationship to model that is lasting, it is easier in a lot of cases to achieve that because you're mirror imaging what you saw. And I think a lot of that has to do with, if I've seen something, I can replicate it. If I haven't seen it, I'm only using other people's views or television or Hollywood to attempt to replicate it. And so it becomes essential to look at what we're doing, but the ability to switch between single mindedness, self autonomy, and groupthink or couplethink is essential to a lasting relationship. The other thing too is clear acceptance of communication and clear communication in general. That's the next point I want to make. So clear communication doesn't always mean agreement, and this is where people get tripped up. If he or she loves me, they'll agree with me. That's not always true. If he or she loves me, they will be willing to change their opinion when it doesn't match mine. Also not true. Being able to communicate clearly means being able to understand differences or seek to understand differences, embrace those differences, and then move forward with the things that you do have in common. It's interesting because so many people try to think that their soul connection or their twin flame, which soulmate and twin flame originally, both of the concepts come from mythology, and yet people apply them as though they aren't mythological, and they don't have at least partially a fantastical element to them, which makes me quite sad because people literally will put themselves on hold for the idea of meeting that one person, and that's just not how loving relationships actually work. There are people that find that person, but for the most part, so much is placed on that idealistic, fantastical nature of relationships that people miss years, sometimes decades, trying to find that one thing. Anyway, small tangent there, but clear communication is about being heard, understood, accepted, and then moving forward. So, heard, is a person actively listening to you? Understood, do they really comprehend why you believe the way you believe? And then do they accept? And acceptance doesn't mean trying to change, and it also doesn't mean agreement, and that's where people get tripped up. If the only way that you believe you've communicated to a person is that they agree with you or that they are willing to change who they are for you, you will find disappointment and the love won't last, because differences of opinion allow a person to maintain their individuality while being in a corporate or joint situation. This is the same in friendships, it's the same in family dynamics, it's the same in romantic relationships, and that must be embraced in order to really get anywhere lasting. The next point is arguments make you stronger. So people will disagree. And an impassioned person even is going to argue or disagree passionately with someone they love, someone they care about, a partner. But when a healthy, lasting couple with a good foundation argues, they come away stronger than they are when they are, just ignoring issues. So there's a common ground and a commonality of desire to understand and embrace each other's differences that again comes forward in a strong relationship. For example, I will use my grandparents as an example because they are the closest example I have to, and probably a very valid one, to a healthy, lasting relationship. They were married 60 plus years. There were things that my grandmother did not like about my grandfather, and she told him so twice. Once to tell him that she didn't like these things, a second time to see if he was willing to change them, and then she accepted it. And true love requires acceptance of things we don't like because it's unconditional in nature, which is what makes finding it so difficult. I accept you even though I don't like everything you do or say is a foundational point in lasting love. And I would even say that if changing a person is at the core of the relationship, in other words, if they would only do this or that, then the love you have is conditional and it may have difficulty in lasting unless the person has the desire to change within them naturally. And if that's the case, then you may be a catalyst who's helping a person forward. But for the most part, it's very rare that we find a situation where arguing and walking away with respect for another person's position. And for example, I have very interesting views on both religion and politics. I would not expect a partner that I become involved with to completely embrace them because they're fringe-based ideas. They're fringe concepts. They're not mainstream. They're not. I wouldn't say they're completely unique, but finding a person who completely agrees with them, I would think is a rarity. And so I wouldn't expect my partner, when I next become involved, if I do, to embrace them completely. But I would expect and hope to be accepted for them and them challenge my beliefs. Hey, why do you think the way you do? And I have an answer to that. But I wouldn't expect them to change my beliefs. Again, if you're trying to change a person, and this will grate on some people, but if you are trying to change a person, you don't really love them. You're in love with what they could be, not who they are. And when that enters a relationship, there is not a lasting way in that situation. So the next thing is that you're stronger together. So in a lasting relationship, in the Tao or Taoism, um, there's the concept that everything that is weak is strong, everything that is strong is weak, and it's all about balance. And this principle is echoed and brought forward in the concept of a lasting healthy relationship. That is, I have weaknesses, you have weaknesses. In the ideal unified relationship, we both accentuate the strengths of the other person and we cover the weaknesses of the other person, and we both come out stronger individuals and stronger as a unit because of the ability to cover weaknesses um, and to accentuate strengths. When this happens, and it happens repeatedly and it happens deliberately, it creates a stronger than average, um, relationship to have for both people involved, and no one feels like they're overly sacrificing. So sacrifice is a part of relationships too, but the willingness to make the sacrifice and a comfort with, hey, this is worth it to me, so value added to the sacrifice is necessary for the sacrifice to actually be with no strings. And a lot of people don't think about, hey, I'm going to expect you to do something for me in return for making the sacrifice. If that's the case, then you're actually bartering, not sacrificing, and that becomes challenging for some people. So the last two are relatively simple. Uh, one that I put here is no cheating, but I want to expand that into honoring each other's boundaries. So the concept that one person is 100% strictly yours, I think, is a misnomer. That monogamy or committed relationships have to be a choice that people make and reaffirm regularly. So, just because I said, hey, I'll be with you forever, which I caution people to say, that it is dangerous to talk about forevers or nevers because no one ever, always, or nevers. In other words, the concept that we have absolutes, that I can promise that I will forever be here, sets me up for failure because there may be circumstances I don't see. And on the other side of that, if I say I will never do something, there's always a circumstance where your never will be challenged or your forever will be challenged. So it's better to say when having those conversations, it's better to say, I will do my best to the best of my ability with every day and every moment to uphold your boundaries, to respect your limitations. And also, I would expect you to do the same and will expect you to do the same for me. And that is a manageable expectation because it's all about respect and something that we can control, which is our reactions, versus promising an absolute when we don't know what circumstances are coming. So a strong relationship is capable of having people make agreements and stick to them out of choice, not obligation. When something starts to feel like it's an obligation and we are questioning whether we still uphold the obligation, that's where resentment, infidelity, and all of those things are born. When we start to resent the promises we made before making any sort of real option for ourselves if something changes. People change, circumstances change, people evolve and grow. And so making absolute promises is a dangerous slope. Now, obviously, we can make some. Like, I can promise that I'm never going to murder unless I feel threatened. Again, that's a decent promise. But if my physical safety is threatened and I need to defend myself, I can't promise that I won't murder, right? Now, that's an exception to a rule, and most people understand that exception, but when making promises or vows, it's important, and in a lasting relationship, there is not over-promising, but not under-promising either. You honor where the person is, you respect where they are, and you promise based on what you really can commit to. The last one is goals, individual and corporate or couples goals. We have them, we update them regularly, and we work towards them. So a couple that has goals, Short, middle, and long-term goals all are necessary. Short-term, hey, we need to get this done in the next 2 weeks. Medium-term, hey, over the next year, I'd like to see us do this or that. Long-term, 5 or 10 years from now, here's where I'd like to be. Those things are necessary and should be updated at the very least every quarter to see about progress that's made, to see if you're still on the same wavelength with those goals. Because the assumption that nothing's changed is one of the things that undoes even healthy relationships and happy ones. Is we think that the person, and it's a misnomer in the brain, we think that the person we've met hasn't changed, and we often underestimate how much they actually have, and that can create problems and challenges. So anyway, those are the things that contribute to a lasting, loving relationship situation. Please feel free to comment below if there's anything else we can do for you. And until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.